Chapter 19, the year 2012. These days, the date of December 22nd, 2012 is being widely and actively discussed, both in esoteric circles and among scholars and on the internet. Many people believe that the world will come to an end on that day. Why are people talking specifically about this date? It's because this date is connected to a gloomy, apocalyptic prediction by the enigmatic ancient Mayans, according to whose calendar, and by the way, experts admit that the Mayan calendar is much more precise than the Gregorian calendar we now use. On this day, on December 22nd, 2012, the current cycle of the so-called long count, the era of the fifth sun, or the epoch of the jaguar, will come to an end. According to legend, the conclusion of the epoch of the jaguar will be followed by years of death and destruction that will continue until the epoch of the renewal of mankind begins. Scholars recently ascertained that the date indicated in the Mayan calendar is significant astronomically. On this day, an event will occur that takes place only once every 25,800 years. The sun will come into alignment with the mystical, energetic center of the galaxy, and modern civilization will, for the first time, live through this rare astronomical phenomenon. Or it won't live through it. It has been suggested that during the second millennium BCE, the Mayan forebears, whose monuments we encounter in Central America, came down from the mountains where they had been living into the tropical forests and plains of the Yucatan. It is precisely on the plains of the Mayan civilization that the Mayan civilization achieved its greatest flowering in the first millennium BCE. The Mayans knew how to write in hieroglyphs, and their math and medicine were at a very high level. They built stone cities and unbelievable ceremonial structures, such as the Great Palace at Palenque. And, here's the main thing, they had a deep knowledge of astronomy. Up to the present day, no complete explanation has been found for the fact that the Mayan cities began to fall into disrepair long before the Europeans arrived. At the heart of the Mayan civilization's astrology lies the count of days. The basis for generally accepted astrology of the ancient Sumer and Babylon is the arrangement of the planets around the zodiac circle. The Mayans also knew the zodiac constellations, but their zodiac had 13 constellations, not 12. They included the constellation Serpentarius, which the Mayans call the bat, through which the sun passes for only a few days. Now about the enigmatic calendar. The current cycle of time, which comes to an end in the year 2012, is measured starting from a very ancient date, the 13th of August, in the year 3114 BCE. And this is rather strange because, as I've already noted, the culture of the Mayans themselves is a minimum of 1,000 years younger than the experts who study Mayan culture have not been able to reach consensus about how their famous calendar came into being. It's been suggested that the Mayans acquired the calendar, along with their written language, from the Olmecs, whose culture has a more ancient history. And actually, archaeologists have made finds on the territory of the ancient Olmecs settlement at La Venta that confirm a certain continuity or interconnection between those cultures. But what's more interesting is something else. When scholars took a look at comparative chronology, then it became clear that certain momentous events from the past of human civilization fully coincide with the beginning of the current cycle of the Mayan calendar, the 3114th year BCE. Thus, it is roughly at this time that the mysterious megalithic structure of Stonehenge begins to be constructed. Written languages appears in Mesopotamia, in Egypt, following the unification of the Upper and Lower Kingdoms and the founding of the Fortress of the White Wall, Memphis in Greek, ruling dynasties are formed. In America, they begin cultivating maize, M-A-I-Z-E. One gets the impression that precisely at that time, a global cultural revolution took place across the whole planet, and that people acquired new knowledge under the influence of certain external forces. According to one of the theories, priests, shamans, and holy men of that time came into contact with some repository of secret knowledge during their meditations. Of course, the predictions of the Mayan culture, the well-known prophecies, and official sources that speak of a planetary disaster are worthy of attention. Even so, it's each thinking person alive today who can make the most important and reliable reckoning about the future. Let us try to analyze in what direction changes in the ecological situation in Russia are tending. Let's take the time span of just the last 50 years. The majority of the country's population began living in big and middle-sized cities. People in the big cities have ended up without good quality drinking water. And if that weren't enough, people have started having to pay for their most life-sustaining product. Today, society has gotten used to it, and it should not have done so. Water is a requirement for everything. And if society agrees to the ever greater pollution of water, then it does not have the right to exist. It isn't someone up on high who's sentencing man to this, but man himself. I am canceling the predicted hell on earth. This phrase was uttered by the taiga hermit, Anasta. I think it's useful for the majority of the people living on earth to utter similar words and to perform acts that correspond to these words. Today, this is a matter of life and death. Many people living on the planet Earth are taking note of the negative results of global warming. Scientists are spreading the word about changes in the Earth's geomagnetic field and about the flooding of entire continents in the not-so-distant future. Such large-scale disasters have begun occurring right before our contemporaries' very eyes, like the one in Indonesia, where more than 200,000 people perished, and in the USA, where New Orleans, a city with a population of 1 million, was flooded. Scientists also are spreading the word about impending changes in the sun's activity. Questions about the ecological safety of the Earth have arisen so keenly that they were included in the UN agenda in 2007 at England's initiative. At the beginning of 2008, they were considered by Russia's Security Council. For the first time, assertions by those forecasting a global disaster began to dovetail with the way contemporary scientists and the leadership of many states viewed this topic. The priests of the Mayan civilization also spoke out about how a global disaster would occur and that it would take place in 2012. Many people have heard about this to one degree or another, but even so, public conversations about the 2012 disaster touch only a small portion of what is spoken about in talks behind closed doors. It is only by hearsay that we can guess that the Japanese government is taking steps to resettle its population. According to the forecasts, England will be one of the first to be flooded, and evidently, that's why it was the one to initiate the inclusion of ecological questions in the agenda for the meeting of the UN Security Council. It's possible that the governments of various countries are acting correctly by not publicizing the current situation widely and in detail. Why so panic in the people? But on the other hand, the majority of the population might perish because they are out of the loop, and if that's the case, then only the informed elite would be able to save themselves, taking only 100 or 200 slaves each along with them. Scientists are making predictions about which countries will be swallowed up by the elements, the way Atlantis was, and which ones will not be subject to flooding. In Russia, for example, the coastal regions will be flooded, and Siberia will end up being the best place to live. Following global warming on the Earth, an ice age will ensue. But what difference does it even make? What kind of global disaster comes about if society is in no condition to withstand the disastrous phenomena we already have today? such as the fumes that contaminate the air in the cities, the electromagnetic radiation that penetrates our dwellings, and many others. Is there an alternative to mankind's sad future? Of course there is, but all in good time. And so, at world forums, they've come to a clear conclusion. It's possible that a disaster will occur in coming years. And so here is where an interesting question arises. Are leaders, the wealthy, and science capable of taking some kind of measures to avert it? Representatives of global science have been unable to answer this question. The governments of various countries, in an effort to affect the situation in some way, developed the so-called Kyoto Protocol, according to which all countries would be required to reduce harmful emissions into the atmosphere. Thus far, the protocol has remained unratified by many countries. What might happen in the future does, of course, cause us to worry, but shouldn't the disastrous situation that is already playing out today, the situation masquerading as the triumph of civilization, cause us even greater worry?